We're going to run through a few topics, and what I'm going to do first is I'm going to start sharing my screen with you. So if you bear with me just a moment. All right, well, thank you so much to the Global Skill Development Council for arranging today's presentation on generative AI and project management. Hopefully I'm going to give you lots of good food for thought, and I'm going to share lots of interesting things today. So I'm going to go through some brief details about myself. I'm going to talk a bit about the generative AI background. What do we mean by it? What's happening with it? I'm going to talk a bit broadly about AI and project management, particularly what some of the experts have been saying. I'm then going to talk about how one Finnish company, the one I'm working for, has worked to square the circle with AI and project management. And I'm actually going to, as part of that, I'm going to actually share a bit of a demo of our platform so I can show you how we've made it work, so I can show you it for yourselves. And then I'll have some contact details so you can reach out for me. And then we'll have time for Q&A and then the gamification. So a little bit about me. So I'm a experienced technology executive. Spent about last 10 years working in the tech industry, including a couple of years at the tech research company Gartner. I'm a long-term technology fan, ever since winning a Nintendo Game Boy and a packet of crisps, you might call them chips, at the age of 10. I've now spent over 8 years in the project management space, as 𝗧𝗶𝗺 mentioned. And I'm currently working for Ketto Software, which is a Finnish company that provides strategic portfolio management with AI. If you want to reach out to me, you've got my email address there as well, so timothy.ball@kettosoftware.com, and I'll put that up toward the end as well. So I wanted to start off with talking a bit about a generative AI background. And before anyone asks, yes, we did use generative AI to generate the background of this image. But I'm going to talk a bit about the kind of history, what's happened, where we're at, why now. So the concept of artificial intelligence has long been a dream of humankind. And you can look back to ancient myths and legends. The Greeks had a phrase called automata, which means moves by its own will. So the idea of mechanized creatures, mechanized humans who would move, who would be active, who do all those kind of things. The most famous of whom in Greek myth is 𝗨os, and 𝗨os was so the myth goes, 𝗨os was made by the Greek god Hephaestus, who is it's basically an engineering god, a blacksmith god. He was made to guard the Isle of Crete in Greece, and he met his end at the hands of Jason on his quest for the Golden Fleece. But nonetheless, this is an idea that there was already an idea in the human mind of creating machines, creating ideas that could work and operate on their own devices, and that concept has long been on humans' minds. And in fact, in ancient Greece, there were rumors of brilliant inventors, Daedalus, Hero Alexandria, who managed to actually make mechanized humans in appearance, mechanized animals, so on. It's a fascinating story, but the reason I'm sharing it is because this has long been on humanity's mind. Now, artificial intelligence, particularly things such as chess, this has also been long in mind. In the mid 1700s, there was a very famous example. It was called the Turk, and what it was like the appearance of like a, how to describe it? It was like a chest, like a storage chest, and to one side of it, on the other side of it, sat like a mannequin of a man wearing very fine Ottoman robes, hence the name the Turk. And what would happen is on top of this chest was a chessboard, and this mechanized figure, the Turk, could pick up chess pieces and move them around the board. And the kind of story was that this was a real artificial intelligence, and it could actually play people at chess. Now, we know that this wasn't true. We know it was either someone in the chest itself or someone actually within the frame of the mannequin. But it set the idea in mind of artificial intelligence doing these activities, being able to respond to human being able to respond to human interactivity. Jumping forward, I mean, the 𝗕𝘂𝗀𝗃 was very famous. It toured Europe and the USA, and it lasted for some 80 years until I think it got burned down in a museum somewhere. So it was an example of people yearning and dreaming of artificial intelligence. And although it wasn't real, it was enough that people kind of believed it. Now, jumping through to the end of the 20th century, you had IBM creating the very famous chess computer Deep Blue, which very famously in 1997 beat the Russian chess grandmaster Garry Kasparov. I think over a series of 6 games, it won 2 and drew 3. So it's another example of how AI went from being an idea, sort of a playful thing with the mechanical thing of the 𝗕𝘂𝗃, to actually being something that's real with Deep Blue. And also, of course, it's also important to recognize that in pop culture, there have been plenty of AI nightmares. The fears about, well, what could AI actually do? So you've got just a few examples of movies. You've got the 2001: A Space Odyssey, where a starship's computer essentially goes crazy because it has competing instructions, and it says, well, it fights itself. You have the Terminator, of course, with Skynet, which rebels against humanity, and you have Ex Machina, which again is something else about AI rebelling against humanity. So AI has been a long dream of mankind, of humanity, but it's also been something that has been a fear as well. Now, jumping to this current decade, and we have what's the launch of ChatGPT and the new what's been called the AI boom. Now, ChatGPT itself was launched to the public on 30th of November 2022. And I want you to remember that date, because that's going to become something really, really important in a moment. It stands for Chat Generative Pre-trained Transformer. Try saying that one fast. And it's built on a large language-based model, which essentially it works on, you have a conversation with it. It learns from the conversations. And it's powered and it's been enabled because of a lot of the modern generation of machine learning, a lot of the big, much more powerful quantum computers and other things that are being developed. And when it launched, it quickly became the then fastest growing consumer software application in history. So I think within a short period of time, they had over 100 million people logging in using the application. I'm one of them, by the way, in case you were wondering. So this then led to a boom of all sorts of other similar systems. You had Google Gemini, you had ErnieBot, you had Llama, Claude, Grok, and then of course Microsoft, which I understand has a controlling interest in OpenAI. They launched what they call Copilot, so their own artificial intelligence tool, which is built on the ChatGPT GPT-4 model. Now, the crucial thing is that there were a lot of these sort of technologies in the ether before, obviously things like Deep Blue that were very focused on a particular thing. What has made the crucial difference now, what has launched the AI boom, is how it's all, to actually use and engage with a lot of these tools, it's all built around very simple to understand prompt-based text input. So anyone who's able to use a word processor, able to use a computer, can test out and try these different tools for themselves. And I would encourage you to kind of have a look, and I would encourage you to have a sort of, test some of these systems if you haven't done so already. But this has been the big difference. So yes, there was the big increase in computing power, but it's also been the concept about making it very simple for people to actually put their information in, test it, work with different prompts and work from there. And part of the large language model is it will learn from previous things in order to refine and better improve what's being shared. So, of course, once you had the start of the AI boom, there's a question, is this like a new Wild West in terms of technologies? All of a sudden you had not just chatbots, you had being able to turn text to pictures. So you had Midjourney as one example, prompt text to video. Sora AI is a huge example of that. And again, I would really encourage you to sort of look into some of those ones. This has led to all kinds of things. This led to deep fakes. I saw, for example, there was an American rapper who shared a deep fake of a political candidate. I won't go into more details, saying all kinds of things that would not would not be said in public. And so there's questions about, well, can we trust what's being said? There's other things that are like there's been an increase recently of like songs done in AI in the voices of dead artists. So questions around, well, what happens with the rights of those? And a lot more kind of things going on. As a result of all these things, there's been a lot of concerns over AI impacting jobs. And of course, last year we had a couple of Hollywood strikes in the US. And that was one of the big reasons why I think the Writers Guild, I think they're called, why they went on strike, because they were concerned about, well, what could AI do? Could AI in fact take over much of their jobs and much of their work? And it's just, and on a related note, Sora AI, and this is from The Guardian just last month. Tyler Perry, who's an American US film and TV mogul, my understanding is that he has a very large film studio, TV studio in Atlanta, Georgia, over in the States. And he was about to add an additional 12 sound stages to his studio. So, it's not just the amount of space, but it's also all the employees, it's all their work, it's all the different things in the background, all the people, the technologists, all the people behind it who would have been hired as a result. But he's now put a pause to this because of Sora AI, because now increasingly what a lot of people are able to do is, with a few prompts and a few edits, they're able now to create almost Hollywood level short films, at least at the moment. And I've seen some of them and they're absolutely incredible. So what's happening now is, with all these new tools that are being developed, and they're all using those kind of core things, the increasing computing power, the machine learning, and also the easy to use prompt-based activities. These are now all causing lawmakers to be on the back foot. There's questions, things like IP, security, and many more. So lots of food for thought. And kind of a question then is, well, what can AI not do? And this was something I saw that just made me smile. Hey, ChatGPT, finish this building. So there's questions of these sort of things. And then we have lots of other questions in mind. So bearing in mind those things, and I'll cover this a little bit more, we jump into more project management, but what skills are needed in the future? How fast will AI develop? What jobs will die or be born? How can we regulate things? Are we living in a matrix? Are we in a simulation? I know Elon Musk is a big fan of that. What's my place in the world? And which businesses will succeed? Now, bearing in mind all those things, and I would say it's important to consider, okay, what are the pros and cons? What are the cons? But I would also say that there's ways of looking at AI as being like a personal trainer or an advisor. And the World Economic Forum, it produced a really interesting article, which I encourage you to read, which is, and I'll just take a short bit from it here. AI is not a threat to jobs, but rather a way to enhance and augment human capabilities, allowing people to focus on higher level tasks that require creativity, critical thinking, empathy. All of the core things that AI cannot do. AI can take on certain things, but it's these key elements. This is the human difference. Now, I'm going to jump into AI and project management in a moment, but if I may, if I can ask 𝗧𝗶𝗺, if you're happy to share the poll with our audience here today. And I would like to ask you, our audience here today, how often do you use any AI tools in your work? Is it have you never used any? Do you use them maybe a couple of times a year, maybe once a month, once a week or every day. So I'm seeing the every day is winning, and there's one person who's been very brave and said never, and I really appreciate you being open about that. Thank you very much. I can't see who's given which answers, but I appreciate seeing this. Well, if anyone else wants to submit their answers, that's fantastic. What I can say is thank you very much for sharing. And a couple of you who have said never, I appreciate you being really open with us. It's really good to know, and I can see kind of most people, nearly half have said nearly every day or every day. A lot of people at least once a week, once a month. But it's really good to know, and I hope that today's session will help give you a bit more confidence to use and try some of these things. Is it okay if we end that poll there, 𝗕𝗂𝗧𝗧, and I'll carry on? Thank you very much for that. I'll just I'll close that down. Thank you very much for sharing on that. It's always really good to kind of know where people are coming from. So I'm gonna move on. So AI and project management. I like that robot there. Now, bearing in mind, remember the date of when ChatGPT launched to the public. I was at Project Challenge Expo 2022. Project Challenge, if anyone knows of it, it has been one of the leading project management events in the UK, and has also attracted a lot of people from around the world. In the Expo in 2022, which was in September 2022, there was a big session all around artificial intelligence, and and I share this here now. There were these sort of very clever people who said we didn't find any real use cases for AI and PPM software. So what they're saying is they couldn't find any real use cases for AI in project portfolio management, which was quite amazing. And we had I had my CTO in this, actually attend that session. He came away from it just thinking that they're not seeing the big picture. Now, jumping ahead a few months, artificial intelligence, this is at the APM Portfolio Management SIG conference in May 2023, again in London. AI was voted one of the top 3 areas of interest for portfolio managers over the next 3 years in terms of potential impact on the project profession. So what happened in the meantime was obviously the launch of ChatGPT and the start of the modern AI boom. So things went from people saying, well, we don't know how we can use it, to suddenly saying, this is going to be one of the most important things we need to be aware of. And in terms of what industry experts are now saying, Antonio Nieto Rodriguez, he is the former chair of the Project Management Institute. He's a PMI fellow, very experienced, very knowledgeable in what he does. And he had this to say. It's an article in the Harvard Business Review. I'd encourage you to read it. It's a really interesting piece. He quoted some research by Gartner that said by 2030, 80% of project management tasks will be run by AI, powered by big data, machine learning, and natural language processing. So what this is AI taking on board a lot of the kind of current burdens, and powered by those things, having a lot of data, machine learning, all those kind of crucial things. And he outlined 6 particular areas where project management will be disrupted. So one of them was around better selection and prioritization. So this was around how AI can help supporting and saying, okay, well, which projects do we run? Maybe what projects should we end? Greater support for the project management office. So this was all around the AI becoming like part of the PMO and supporting them, making things visible, working with these different areas. Then you've got another kind of key area around things like improved, faster project definition, planning, and reporting. And I'm going to share a bit about how our software does some of these things in a moment. Virtual project assistants, so having AIs that can essentially be reviewing projects, giving feedback, supporting you as you grow and develop. And then 5th is advanced testing of systems and software. Do your processes, do the systems you have in place, is the software actually, is it working to support you? Is it doing what you need it to do? And then sixth, which I found very interesting, was about a new role for the project manager. So if in 6 years' time, 80% of project management tasks are run by AI, then what Antonio argues is that the role of the project manager will be changed. There'll be a lot more focus, say, on the soft skills of, say, persuasion, of working with people, less on the kind of the administrative and much more on the communicative, much more on the persuasive. A lot of those kind of key, very, very human skills. So it's saying that project management will be disrupted by AI, but ultimately there's lots of very positive things that will come from that. A freeing up from lots of the tasks and a focus on, well, how can we do things better? And how can we, for want of a better word, be more human? Now, of course, it would go without saying that I would ask ChatGPT what it would say how AI could benefit project management. And I like what it said, so I'm sharing a bit of it here with you today. So what it says is project managers can leverage AI in various ways. It can do predictive analytics, so it can analyze historical project data to see things like potential risks, timelines, resource requirements, better decision making. Task automation. It can help things with routine tasks such as scheduling, resource allocation, progress tracking, so on and so forth. Natural language processing, so things like analyzing project-related documents, which is something that we're actually going to be doing soon with Ketto. Emails and communication channels. Resource optimization, so things like, do you have the right resources in the right place to deliver what's been promised? And then suggesting, well, how can we improve efficiency? And you've got things like your risk management. What are potential risks? And of course, risk management is a very important skill. And here's also where the AI can support. So it can look at these things, and then the project managers, the risk managers handling this can then say, well, do we approve this or not? You've got things like decision support, quality assurance, and then personalized learning. And then it says very optimistically, by integrating AI technologies into their workflows, project managers can streamline processes, improve decision making, and ultimately deliver projects more efficiently and effectively. And I would agree with a lot of this. I think this is very positive. And as you'll see in a moment when I share a bit of our platform, we're adapting this and putting a lot into our system as well. So I'm going to share with you how one Finnish company, that's us at Ketto, how we've squared the circle. So how we've looked at this and said, okay, we started developing the AI part of our system. Ironically enough, around that time at Project Challenge, when all the supposed experts at that time were saying there were no use cases for using AI in project management. And we were convinced there was something really good to be done. And something that kind of came to our mind was what 𝗕𝗂𝗀𝗃𝗃 calls we've referred to it now as the rule of 30, 40, and 50. And what it talks about is integrating things like AI technology can help reduce costs by 30%, increase efficiency by up to 40%, and improve decision-making accuracy by up to 50%. So all of these kind of things, what does this mean? So you're reducing costs, you're improving efficiencies, which again help with costs, help to get to money faster, and improving decision-making accuracy. So it's being one of those trusted advisors to help and say, well, what's happening here? Now, a little bit about us at Ketto. So we were founded in Finland in 2003. We now have over 120,000 users around the world of our software in more than 30 countries. We work with over 25 plus global enterprises, as well as a number of local and more regional players as well. And we had a 30% revenue growth over last year, so that is 2023. And we have a customer retention rate by revenue over 10 years, about 90%, which is much higher than most of the rest of the competition. Now, Ketto itself, Ketto actually means meadow in Finnish. So you get hundreds of different types of flowers and plants growing on the Ketto. When you gather them together in a bouquet, you make something beautiful. Likewise, with our software, we provide no-code strategic portfolio management with AI that works in a very similar principle. So gathering your strategies, project portfolios, and resources into one place, like collecting flowers from a meadow to make a beautiful bouquet. Now, the way our platform works and the way we've worked to connect those different elements of AI with project management, we have what we call a no-code platform. And you can sort of see it here. It looks like a little cloud in the middle of all these things that we can connect with all sorts of different systems, including multiple AIs, including customer data, finance data, employee data, document data, and then communicating tasks like development tool sets, Jira, Azure DevOps. And so what we are doing here is linking all this information. So linking the big data, linking machine learning, all these different elements together so that our customers can benefit from it. In terms of what we do strategic portfolio management. So it does things like defining, aligning objectives and strategic initiatives, and doing things like prioritizing and managing demands, benefits, financials, resources, and risks, and then managing roadmaps and dependencies. And if you remember what I just shared a little bit earlier on, there are lots of elements there about, well, what is it that people are looking for to help, and how can AI help? Now, in terms of what our software does, there's kind of three big questions we help people tackle. One is around what strategies and OKRs or KPIs, or some might call them initiatives, does your organization have? What is being measured and how are they tracked? Secondly, are your projects, programs, and portfolios on track to deliver those strategies and OKRs? And that includes all those things like RAID logs, so risks, issues, and so on and so forth, benefits, etc. And then do you have the right resources in the right places to help deliver everything that has been promised? And one of the things we've developed in the platform has been an advanced algorithm to help organizations with saying, okay, do we have the right resources in the right place? And I'll share a little bit about that when I get into the demo in just a moment. And then why is Ketto unique? And I would say there's kind of three key elements to it. One is that we're built on a no-code platform. That doesn't mean there's no templates, there's no structure to anything, but rather what it means is that there are lots of things built into the tool that you can put together with understanding simple text structures. So you're not having to have a lot of coding knowledge, but very much like with a lot of these generative AI systems, it's built around prompts. It's built around these kind of if this then. And this has helped us with a platform that's able to get set up and running much faster than much more of the more traditional competition. It allows us also to be process-based but process agnostic. And the natural language structure also makes it far easier for us to integrate with other systems, such as we discovered in late 2022, early 2023, with systems like ChatGPT and other generative AI systems. So we've built seamless AI integration into our platform. So you're not having to go from to suddenly cut and paste something into ChatGPT. It's all in the system itself. And you've got things like, for example, content generation. So things like the tool is able to generate things like project descriptions, tasks, risks, and so on, all the way up through to AI portfolio analysis and guidance. And we've also integrated some new functionalities. For example, with using DeepL, we can do real-time text translation. And we've got lots more to come. And our tool is very proudly made in Finland for humans. So we're built around Nordic design. So it's all about having, being on the cutting edge of innovation, having a really beautiful user interface and a top user experience. And we believe very much that software should support your organization, not force you to fit the software. So let me give you a short demonstration so I can actually show you we mean what we say. So if you'll bear with me just a moment, I'm going to share my screen again with you. I'm going to assume so. So what we have here is we have the front page of our system. Now, we've set this up for a fictional energy company because we work with lots of companies in the energy, manufacturing, other similar sectors. And I've created a front page here with, we've got lots of dashboards. I won't go through too much of them, but it's all designed to be incredibly clickable. I'll give you some very kind of brief details so you can see things like a risk severity map on other areas and so on and so forth. So beautiful dashboards able to be created quite easily. I'll give you a brief kind of overview of kind of, well, what does this actually mean practically? So if I jump in here, for example, I've got the list of this fictional organizations, OKRs. So here we have, for example, a list of the company objectives, and then it's broken down into OKRs. So I can see here things, for example, there's a focus on ESG. I can click on this and then immediately go into a particular OKR, and I can start saying, well, what's actually happening here? I can see the progress status is poor, and I can drill down and see, well, what's happening? And maybe there are different projects associated with that. So we have all projects, all these different areas in there. And if I go back into here, we have a portfolio analysis function. So what I'm able to see here is, as an example of what AI can do, and in this particular example, we've connected with ChatGPT for this purpose today, and we've set different prompts. So all this is being run in our Ketto software platform. So what I can see here, for example, is I can see new ideas for future OKRs. So it can sort of come up with new concepts for me. I can also look at and say, well, okay, there's OKRs with inadequate strategic alignment. So the AI can draw my attention and say, well, there's things you're working on here that say actually where you're missing out on certain things. And I can say, well, actually, I need to take action on these. And I can also look as well, the AI can analyze and tell me, well, how effectively are your OKRs aligned with your strategic objectives? And it gives me all that information, all reviewed, because it's gone through the data I presented it with. And this is all prompt-based. I can also ask it a direct question. I can ask it something like, which is my least successful? There we go. The least successful company objective appears to be draft a plan of carbon neutralization. So using, again, a very similar approach here, we've put this system in place so that you can ask it direct questions. You can have prompts built behind the scenes, and I'll jump into that a little bit more, how that works. But I can also as well use this to suggest, to ask it direct questions as well. So I'm now effectively talking to my portfolio, in this case, the portfolio of all our strategies and OKRs. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to jump into a bit more of a kind of traditional project. So if we go in here, in fact, let me just go from the front page here. Now, this is as I said, it's a fictional energy company. It's a sustainable energy company. So they've got a project here called rooftop solar panels. Now, what we've done here is you can see a couple of buttons pop up a few places, and we're going to jump into the business case and I'll share with you more. So what we have here, you can see a couple of buttons. Now, this purple flower button, because Ketto means meadow in Finnish, we've built into this tool prompts behind the scenes that when you click this button, it will do something. It will do something that has been primed to work. So it could be, you need to look at this. It needs to do this. So what this is doing here is this is making it really simple for people to be able to engage with AI, to use it to support them in their roles. So if I click on this button here, for example, what needs to be done, and I can get the AI to generate some text for me. And this has not been, I've not written this. This has been drawn from the existing data. This has also been drawn from the prompts we put in to come up and suggest some of these ideas. Now, I don't need to necessarily be stuck with these. I can say, well, we don't really need this one. Just an example. It's very important, but I'm just using an example here. And I can then get the AI to improve the language again. And in this case, it's taken what was a number list and turned it into a paragraph. So the tool gives a lot of this powerful potential. And again, because it's a no-code platform, you can all do this within the system itself. You're not having to go away and ask a developer to do this. Of course, we also would limit this in terms of who has access to this capability. And in terms of that functionality there as well, we have the language translation. And for this particular environment, we have it in German and obviously English, and then also Finnish. So I don't speak Finnish, but many of my colleagues do. And I'm assured that the language translation is absolutely top-notch. So we work with 3 different things. So again, if I'm a project manager going in here, I can use this to help me with creating the content. And in just a couple of minutes, I'll be showing you a bit more about how this can work in a bit more detail. If I go in here and say, for example, the risks, and if I click on this button, it can actually analyze the data that is in the system or where it's pulling information from. So for example, something we're about to launch is the ability to analyze, say, project documents and pull information from them, and then be able to generate things. So here, for example, for risks, it's already created. So I can look at this here now, and it's saying feasibility impact analysis. So it's looking at me and saying, okay, well, this is the description, and it's recommending mitigation actions. So it's using AI to help save me a heck of a lot of time, take a lot of the burdens off me. Now, I don't have to stick with this. I can delete these details. But again, it's about helping me and saying, okay, well, what's most important for you? Now, within this project, there's already a task timeline. But one of the things the tool can actually do is once you fill in enough of the kind of core information, you could click that button and the AI could then generate a task list for you. So again, bearing in mind with what Antonio was recommending and sort of seeing that that these tools can start doing. And then if I look at things, for example, resources. Now within this particular project, there's already different elements in play. Now if I look at, let's drop on this particular one. And this particular avenue, this is a particular task called sales. I can see that Marco has been allocated to this, and I can see the differences between his capacity versus what he's been allocated. And then crucially, what the system can then do, you can actually say, well, to do this task, actually, we think we might need someone else because Marco's massively over capacity on this one. And what I can then do is I can say, well, I want to have a specific cost center. I want to look at particular certifications. And I will look at as well, do I want someone senior? Do I want someone mid-level? And then what the tool can do is it can actually then recommend different people based on those requirements. So this is, again, how all these different elements come together. In this case, it can recommend to me, or maybe it should be Hannah Henley. And then what I could do is I could then select and then send the allocation request. And that would then go off to her line manager. So it's all these ways of how AI can support in saving time. Now, appreciate the sort of time we're spending. So I'm going to focus on a couple of interesting, couple other things. I'm going to jump into the project portfolio itself. Now, something I want to share with you is how some of these different elements come together within Ketto, because this is all based on what we've been seeing in the opportunities that AI presents. And so one of the really exciting ways to draw these things together is actually to say, okay, and in this case, we're looking at the whole project portfolio. So you've got a list view here of all these current projects in play, and what's happening, what are the statuses, so on and so forth. Now, if I go into the AI analysis here, what I can do now is I can look at, okay, here are the profitable projects, here's the business strategy, here are the key insights. And then what I can do is I can ask the AI to, what 3 new projects should I launch for business growth? So what it's going to do now is it's going to look at all my information, and it's going to come back to me with some concepts of projects that I should be launching based on its analysis of what we should be doing. So I'm going to select one of these. I like this one, traffic wind turbine. So I'm going to cut and paste this text, and we're working on making this a bit more fluid. What I'm now going to do is I'm going to take this text, I'm going to create a new project, and again, what I'm doing here is I'm using all the data, I'm working with the AI, and it's giving me suggestions. So I'm going to say, well, I'll be the project manager on this one, and the project type is, let's say it's R&D. Now, we've already built a workflow into this tool. So there's a process here you can see on the left. So in this case, it's a business case. So this is, sorry, it's initiation phase. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to fill in some of these details. Let's say I'm the project owner as well, just to save time. And what I can then start doing is, well, what OKRs is this connected to? And again, just looking at some of these areas. Parent project, what's the strategic priority? 80%. And this is all modifiable within the tool, so you're not restricted on things. And I'll just go through and put some of these things in here. Again, I won't go too much into this. So I can flesh out more of this information. I can say total value of benefits. There's an SAP code if I want to put in there, but for now I'm just going to keep this quite simple. So I put basic details in there. Now what I can do is I can go into the business case, and because the AI suggested information, it's really put some of these details together. I can now start generating things like, what's the reason for the project? What needs to be done? I can also look at things, for example, business case risks. I can say approximate cost. I think this is going to be 100,000. Who's the audience? It's going to be wind power customers. What's the total budgeted cost? I can start filling in all this extra information. But again, I'm going to keep this quite simple just because I'm doing a very fast demonstration of the platform. What's the objectives of the reform? How will this affect our customers? Maybe I want this in a paragraph instead. There we go. And I can say, well, what further development after that? Now what I can do is I can ask it to define potential benefits for me. And again, bear in mind, I'm not writing any of this. This is all taken from the existing data set we have. This is all taken from the prompts behind the scenes. This is all taken from how we prepared the AI, but instructed about our business. And it's created multiple sort of tangible and intangible benefits now. And what I can now do is I can go to the concept decision. I can say, now this is all very simplified. For a real project, of course, you'd need more oversight. But if I go in here and I say approval log, I can now move this to the concept stage. Yes, I do. And now I can start filling in things like finance details. I could put in defined benefits. I could also, if there's enough information here, I could actually create a task timeline. I could also start putting in resources. And I can also start creating things like the risk log. So here again, I can click on this and it will take me through and it will start populating risks based on the data set, based on how we trained it, and so on and so forth. So you've got issues here as well. And all of this, essentially in 5 minutes, I've gone from saying, okay, AI, what project should we launch, to creating a new project, to filling in key information. So when I started a project, I didn't have to go start this with a blank piece of paper, but instead the AI has been supporting me all the way along. And then I can also do things like status reports. Now again, as well, if I look at this, I can say, well, what's been completed so far. Now again, this is just a sort of bit of a demo, but then I can start putting in place all sorts of different things. I can put in requirements, and then once that's all happy with, I can then move through to the implementation stage. So what I've just done is I've taken everything we've been discussing a bit in the presentation, and I've shown you how at Ketto we've sort of built through and integrated AI directly into our platform. So everything from the content generation piece, which I've just shown you with creating a project, the portfolio analysis piece. So it's been all around, well, what's actually happening with the information there? What do we need to be aware of? And then moving on and sort of saying, well, okay, taking that AI portfolio analysis and then saying, okay, well, based on that, well, maybe what new projects do we need to launch? And then taking that again and then taking that back to the project manager level and then taking that information, all that guidance from the AI, and then using that again for content creation to help create and start populating out a project plan. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, I hope today what I've shown you so far is, we've taken it right from the idea of like the sort of dream of the automata, what AI could potentially do. We've gone through, the kind of the concepts, the initial ideas. We've shared about how the AI boom has changed everything, and it's only just getting started. And I've shown you how at Ketto we've been able to integrate successfully with these new generative AI tools in project management. And I've shown you practically how we've been able to make them work. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to share my screen one more time, if I may. And what I'll do here is I'll say a very big thank you for your time.